have the Ayatollah of fantasy rock and roller with us today, Adam Rank. How you doing, Rank?
They look great in person, and I just can't wait to next year where we can pack it full of 25,000.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I didn't know it was Ball Guys Day. It was being ranked. I mean, how do you lose?
This is the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast.
It's time to go behind the grind, presented by the Fantasy Points Media Group. And today we have the champ. The champ is here, the Kings Classic Auction champ from 2020, 2021. And I think there's a few more like championship belts kind of hanging in Drew Davenport's wall of fame right now. Look, I don't know, you can't really see anything because of all the TVs there right now. But I mean, you're talking about the champ of champs is joining us. And this whole fantasy football thing, this is just his side hustle, man. This is one of the most busiest dudes out there right now. Make sure you tune in. Make sure you follow him at Drew Davenport FF. Drew, how are you doing today?
There you go.
Fantastic, man. This is cool. I appreciate that. Man, you're hyping me up. You're making me feel like I'm really something. My head's going to get bigger as the show goes on. Thank you for having me.
So, I don't know if you caught part one here. We talked about auction draft strategies, and basically this is how I'm trying to, catching more bees with honey, a wolf in sheep's clothing here, so to speak, kind of getting into Drew there a little bit now, pumping him up a little bit, getting him a little bit confident going in the auction draft just to crush him. Actually, I'm in the Len Dawson division, so it doesn't really matter, but hey, that's what we're here for. But we got to kick this off because we all love music, and I need to know right now, if you were a closer in the Major League Baseball, or if you were a WWE superstar, what would that ring music be? What is that music to introduce you to the people going to sound like?
Boy, oh boy, starting off tough. So the music I listen to is pretty chill. But you know what? You want to hear something funny? I swear I'm not trying to be a 22-year-old, but I've really gotten into Jack Harlow lately. So, you can do whatever you want with that information. I think I'd have to pick something from Jack Harlow right now.
You want to sing a little something for us? You want to give us a couple little beats here?
Hell no.
Smart man.
So usually the next question, the follow-up question to this is typically, hey, what's that guilty pleasure song? But I want to change it up a little bit here. What is that one song that maybe you listen to that gets you dancing like Jean-Claude Van Damme? You know what I'm talking about.
That's my favorite GIF in the world. Oh gosh. So what gets me dancing? Man, I don't know. That's good. I'm old school. So I'm 46 years old. Can I just some Snoop? Give me some Dre, give me some Bone Thugs. I mean, I'm old. But that's I love, those are three of my favorites.
So I'm trying to think. I'm trying to put your age here. You said 46, so I don't think I'm stating something out of the ordinary here. You kind of want to go a little bit old school with the music. I was thinking maybe throwing a little bit of the Beach Boys there, maybe a little bit of the Surface there, little wipe out, a little bit to allude to your surfing abilities. Talk about that surfing ability you have going on.
I don't have a lot of surfing ability. I like to surf, but I'm stuck in Ohio. I came to that whole thing because I had a roommate in college who was obsessed with it. He would get like a surfing magazine in the mail. This is in the infancy of the internet days. So he would check the results of the surfing events online. And I was always like, what is up with this dude? Well, then he leaves me high and dry before my senior year, moves out to San Diego, starts surfing. Now he lives in Hawaii. He's still my best friend in the world. And he got me into it because then when the surfing, like the championship tour started being broadcast on the internet, I could watch every event. And oh man, it's just, there's something about the culture, the people, the feeling when you get on the back of a surfboard and you're kind of just riding a wave. It sounds a little cliche, but it's such a pure moment. You're not thinking about anything else. You're going kind of fast, standing up, kind of looking around like this is amazing. It's a wonderful feeling. I wish I didn't live in Ohio, but that's how I came to it. I'm obsessed with it. I'm obsessed.
Please
Yeah, I've
tell
been
me there's a
surfing once,
picture out
so
there somewhere. Tell me there's a picture out there somewhere with Drew Davenport with frosted tips. Please tell me it's out there.
Matt,
Wow.
it is 1,000% out there. It's not on the internet,
Yes.
but I have frosted tips back in law school. Yeah, 100%. It's out there.
That's funny. Yeah, but I know what you mean about surfing. I went to Hawaii on vacation, and I mean, I wiped out like 100 times, and I was kind of sore afterwards. But like when you're out there and on the waves, it is something different.
It's
Let's
incredible.
talk about young Drew. Let's get to know him a little bit. Did you play
All
any
right.
sports as a youth?
Yeah, I played everything. It was a huge part of me growing up. Played soccer, tennis, golf, baseball. Didn't get heavy into football. I liked football, but I was better at the other stuff, so I stuck with that other stuff. And then soccer really ended up being my main sport that I turned out to be the best at. So I stuck with soccer through high school and played for some traveling teams, and then sort of hung it up until I got to be in college with some people who played. And I just played recreationally. It was kind of nice to do that after just grinding soccer for 3 seasons out of the year for my whole life growing up.
Mhm.
I got back to playing it as an adult as something I enjoyed. So yeah, sports has just been a huge part of my life.
Yeah, and who are some of your favorite players or teams growing up? It can be soccer, football, basketball, whatever.
Actually, I'm a Steelers fan, so that happened real organically. I was like 3 years old, and they were on TV all the time because I was born in '76. And my parents said I loved the black and gold, and I would just sit there and watch Steelers games. And then at my first memory is being a Steelers fan. So that's one of them. My brother ended up going to Indiana University when I was in 7th grade, and I got to visit him up there and fell in love with Indiana University, IU basketball. So I ended up going to IU for my college degree, and I'm a huge IU basketball fan. The saying I've always heard about when you get older is you have to pare down your sports tree. You have to, I used to be a huge Reds fan. I just don't watch baseball anymore. I used to be a huge Cavs fan. I just don't watch the NBA much anymore. I don't have the time. I'm way too busy with 2 little kids. So it's really down to the Steelers and the Hoosiers in basketball.
Who's your favorite Steeler?
Ah, gosh. My favorite Steeler, probably Rod Woodson. I think he's my favorite all time.
Good choice.
Good choice. Yeah, good choice.
See,
I think
I'm a Raiders fan through and through, and I still can respect Mel Blount and what he did for that position there. So, hey, there's certain Steelers I still like, even though it was clearly an
Troy
incomplete
Polamalu
pass.
is one of the top ones as well.
USC, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Drew, I want to bring this back to a little bit of fantasy football here, a little bit of trash talk, maybe, if we can.
Uh-oh.
I'm looking at the Kings Classic here now, and you are back-to-back champs. We kind of mentioned this already. Are we going to see a three-peat? Because I'm saying there's some big dogs coming in the house. I mean, me, Hutch, Gutierrez there. We're all kind of moving back down to the Dawson.
Wait,
back down to the
who
International.
was that? Who was that first one? What was that about? You said it was some
Hutchinson?
big dogs, and you said who'd you say again?
Hey, for the record, I was 8-6 in the auction. Thank you very much. Our league last year, it was tight. I mean, between first and it was hard to get the playoffs because everyone was so
Sneak
close.
that by really quick, like some big dogs and me, some other guys.
Hey, the big dog's going to eat every once in a while, but we're talking about, I think the Fantasy Points guys, they've got a team going in here this year.
Mhm.
Marcus Grant, he's coming back from the NFL Network for this auction. So again, you talk about getting to know people, competing with these guys, knowing them a little bit more from maybe a previous interaction. And now you get different bodies coming in yet again and then changing how your philosophy is. And you kind of mentioned how you kind of sit back a little bit. Are you able to sit back when you get these other guys in the room?
That's going to be hard because it's a mixed bag. When you sit back, sometimes you lose out on opportunities. So I'm really going to have to be on my game. And that's why I'm a little nervous that it's Monday night and I haven't done any prep yet. And I still have a lot to do before I leave. I got to turn in like 390 billion articles before I leave. So I am a little nervous about that. I think Graham Barfield's coming in and they're leaving Harditz in our room. And Harditz was against me in the Super Bowl last year. And I just have to stress this. I appreciate you saying like 14 times already that I'm back-to-back champ, but it takes a lot of luck to win a league with 14 guys that really know what they're doing, guys or women, whatever the case may be, who really know what they're doing. And to do it 2 times in a row, it's just a ton of luck. What happened to me last year was I got nice deals on Eckler and Devontae Adams, And then they stayed healthy all year. I mean, that's really all it amounts to. In a 14-teamer, if you lose a guy like that, you're not winning the league. So it takes a lot of luck. A three-peat, man, I'll say this. The back-to-back was the highlight of my fantasy career, bar none. I don't know. I told my wife, she came down and sweated out the last quarter and a half with me because I was against AJ Dillon. I don't know if you remember the cold game against the Vikings, and our Hardits had AJ Dillon, and I was up by like 26 points or something like that going to the second half. And I said, well, as long as Dillon doesn't have 3 touchdowns in the second half, I'm winning this thing. So, drive number 1, bam, Dillon touchdown. Drive number 3, bam, Dillon touchdown. I'm like, oh my God. So my wife comes down, she calms me down. She didn't understand why it was such a big deal, but those are once in a lifetime things, which means that I don't think a three-peat's in the offing. I'm going to give it my best shot. Obviously, I'm going to work my ass off to try to do it. I don't know that that's going to happen. I think I was lucky enough to win 2. So
now, Drew, do you remember how many points you put up in that championship game?
I don't remember the exact number. I remember almost exactly what the margin was because there was a couple things that swung my way that I would have lost. So I think I won by 9 points.
Yeah, you got 156.14. Now, I don't want to say anything here, but unfortunately, I didn't make it to that championship game, but I put up 159.16. So I'm just saying, take that for what you will.
I mean, is this show about Drew or is this show about Matt? There's a lot of Matt sneaking himself into like the thick of things. Like, come on, what's going on here?
Well, I was down James Robinson and Adam Thielen by the end, and that really hurts in a league like that. So I was actually surprised I put up that much. Dare Agumbawale scored for me. Picked him up off the wire that week, and he scored for me. So again, just stuff had to line up. Got pretty lucky to do it because I was missing 2 pretty big producers for me in that last week.
Just gonna say I'm enjoying this preemptive Matt trash talk for an auction, but it's making me a little nervous because
he's ready for the weekend,
Yeah, yes, getting ready. Let's dive back into fantasy football and get a little bit more personal with you. Tell us about a decision that changed the trajectory of your life.
Well, when you talk about fantasy football, that is actually, I've got a couple different ones about my life in general, but fantasy right out of the gate, I'll say this. The only reason I am where I am is because back in 2019, when the Tyreek Hill thing was going on, I was thinking about creating just a fantasy account to talk about auction draft because I thought that there just wasn't enough people playing it and talking about it. So I thought I'm going to go on Twitter and just create an account and just call myself an auction expert and just see what happens. Well, then the Tyreek Hill thing starts. And then I'm like, a lot of people are getting this wrong. There is a lot of work product out there that we're going to see about this Tyreek Hill case. I ended up being completely wrong because the judge sealed all the records, but that's another story. But I thought, people are getting this thing wrong. I need to talk about this. So I put out a tweet thread, my first ever legal update, and Joe Bryant noticed it and dropped into my DMs and said, hey, we're looking for an auction guy and we're looking for a legal guy. It just so happens you do both. Seems like a perfect fit. What do you say? And I couldn't say yes fast enough. And that's where I am today. That's why I am where I am today. That was momentous.
So, along this journey, you touch on 2 parts that are kind of, I would say, I don't want to say that auctions are cutting edge, but they're becoming more popular, more mainstream as people are looking for ways to explore to get out of that snake draft kind of, mentality. And then legal as well. We see a lot more legal people taking legal interest in these players, understanding that these are things that greatly affect their fantasy drafts. So, from the times that you've got started to now, how do you see these things changing and where do you see them heading?
That's a great question. I do see that there is more of an excitement for auction drafting out there. And what I see a lot of, and maybe it's just because it's me and I'm looking for it, but I do, because it's such a niche that I think that you really have to sell people on why they should do it. And I know that sounds weird, but I always go back to the thing I talk about all the time when I'm like, hey, everybody, let's go do this fun thing this weekend. Like, let's go canoeing this weekend, or let's go, go to this show and whatever. You really have to force people to have a good time. I've never understood it, but you have to force people, like, get out of the house, come do something fun. People rarely regret when they step outside their comfort zone and go do something like that. So that's how I feel about auction drafting. I feel like you got to convince people that it's going to be fun before you even get to the conversation about why it's good for fantasy football, because it is so much more fun. I believe it's more fun. So I think that we're slowly making inroads. So to answer your question, I think it's going to be a painstaking process, because I do believe that people are just kind of, they like what they like, and that's okay, because I don't hate snake drafts. It's just that I think if you try auctions, you would say, why have I not been doing this? And so the challenge is, how do I convince people of that? If they aren't going to listen to me, they're not going to turn on my show to learn about auction drafts if they don't already think that they want to do it. So the trick is, how do I get people to care about it in the first place? And that means trying to take it more mainstream. I don't know that I have the answer for that yet. I just have to keep pushing and trying to convert people one by one, because it's going to be a tough process.
Yeah. As I see things, I see more people asking and more people saying, why aren't you guys doing, as we're, talking about stuff, and people say, why aren't you doing more information on auction drafts? So I feel like it's coming along as people start to realize that, as you guys were talking about before, if you want DeAndre Swift, you don't have to be in a specific position to be able to get him. You don't have to reach, you don't have to try and adjust the way that you're drafting. You can go out and get your guys. So it's really interesting. I feel like I agree with you, the painstaking part, but I see people getting more interest in it.
Yeah. And what I would say about it is, just real simply, you don't have to have a lot of skin in the game to go do it. Just go do a $5 draft with some people and just say, hey, we're just going to do a best ball, and just to do an auction. It doesn't even have to be something you play out. Just do best ball, $5, $10. So everybody has a little bit on the line, so they're going to take it seriously, because mock auctions will not help you. They won't give you an idea of how fun it is. It's fun when you actually have something on the line and people are going to play it to the end. So just, try it. As soon as you do one, you're going to say, that's something I got to do again.
Well, I'm no chemist, but there's something about whatever gets released when you win one of those auction bids, whether you've overpaid or not. I mean, you get excited. Then you're like, oh crap. It's the different emotions that come with an auction bid. You mean there's anger, there's love, there's excitement. It's everything all in one little 20-second, 30-second, or if you're doing one online, is there anything worse than that timer going all the way down to 1 second and then someone putting a bid in and it goes back up to 30 seconds? I mean, I don't know how many times I have thrown something clearly across the room because of something like that happening. So again, we're doing the online kind of thing here for the Dawson division at the Kings Classic, except there's about 6 of us that are probably going to be present in the draft room with the Blanda and the Brown guys. So I'm probably going to throw something. So just a heads up, take cover, maybe put a helmet on. I mean, it may be your safest bet, because something is going to get thrown live at the Kings Classic.
Do you know how the rooms are going to work this year? Because I haven't heard, like, we're moving out of the hall into this bubble, but we can't do an auction when there's everybody in the same room. So I don't know how that's going to work. I haven't heard.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I'm sure Bob's got some kind of plan for that already. I'm sure it's kind of spaced out a little bit, but I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it's going to be chaos. And hey, I embrace the chaos, mostly because I have no clue what I'm doing. And if no one else knows what I'm doing, I mean, I think that's an advantage.
Yeah,
that's true. It's hard to draft against somebody who is a little bit unpredictable. I stay away from those people.
Just say crazy, and you should stay away from that.
Of auction drafts.
I'm a guest here.
I'm a guest. It's better coming from the guest. But let's get off the fantasy football aspect and let's talk about you again. Tell us something about yourself that people wouldn't realize, like if you have any hidden talents or anything like that.
Hidden talents. Outside of poker, I consider myself to be a solid poker player. Something people might not know. Well, I'll tell you what, I got my black belt when I was in college. I'm a black belt in Taekwondo, but I haven't followed that up with a whole lot of training as an adult. I taught for a while in my 20s. And so it's been, I'm at that age where you think everything was like 4 years ago, and it's actually like 13. Yeah. So I think the last time I taught was like in my upper 20s. So it's been almost 20 years since I've done it, But yeah, that's something people might not know about me.
Nice.
Keeping kind of on this trend, we talked about in season versus off season a little bit earlier. But I have to ask, in season versus off season, let's say in season, is it more stressful doing fantasy football or being a lawyer?
Ooh, that's tough. I will say this: I don't create as much content for football guys during the season, so the busyness level goes down. I think that doing what I do is actually something that can be both things, because when I'm in court on certain days, I have court like 3 out of the 5 days of the week. I'm in the office the other 2. When I'm in court, it's literally the most stressful thing in my life, because you're really the ringleader when you're the public defender. That sounds kind of funny. You would think it's the judge or the prosecutor or something, but they're all waiting on you because they'll schedule you on a Monday afternoon. I might have 25 cases. So I have to be between 11:30 and 2:30. I got to rip through 25 cases. So everyone's waiting on you. The client expects something of you. The prosecutor's waiting on you. The judge is waiting on you. And they're all coming at you from different angles. Judge wants you to move the cases because he doesn't want his docket clogged. The defendant has a right to be represented zealously and fight their case. And then the prosecutor wants you to plead everything so he doesn't have to have trials. It's you get pressure from all the angles. You really feel the pressure. It's a ringer like you wouldn't wish on anybody. Yeah. But then the days I'm in the office, man, it's pretty laid back, because I work for the public defender. If we take care of business and we take care of our dockets, they generally leave us alone. So there is a push and pull there. But I'd have to say, when I'm in court, it's easily more stressful being a lawyer.
Yeah. So the next question is a little personal. What's on your YouTube playlist? Cat videos, Perry Mason episodes, Law and Order. Like, what are you working with over there?
Okay, so I'm going to be real honest here. I hope you're ready for it. So first of all, the obvious one, I watch a lot of surfing videos. Kelly Slater, I'm obsessed with Kelly Slater. He's one of the coolest dudes to ever walk the planet. So I watch a lot of that stuff, but it's a lot of music that I get into that's a little bit off the beaten path, like covers and things like that. I'm currently obsessed with Jack Johnson and Kelly Slater covering the song Home together. I went through a little Miley Cyrus Jolene phase there, and it's pretty weird.
It's really good, Major. Come on.
What's that?
He's shaking his head. I said, Major, it's really good. I really like her cover of Jolene was
yeah, she's so talented. She might be a weirdo, but she's so talented.
Way too nasally for me. Like Miley's a little too nasally.
Yeah. Well, I can get that. I can get how she's off-putting for sure. Some other things probably, I get into comedians a lot. So I'm a huge John Mulaney fan. So I'll watch him. I'll watch Bill Burr, Dave Chappelle, although Chappelle's really trying to piss people off. I'm trying to stay even because I think he's a great entertainer, but that's a different story. Yeah. So comedians, music, like live music. I'll watch Dead shows. I'll watch Buffett shows. And then a lot of surfing.
Nice.
So we've talked about poker a little bit. We've talked about your day job there as a lawyer. We've also talked about auction drafts. Part of me seems to think that these three are basically intertwined in one way, shape, or another. I mean, very similar mindsets. So I need to know, would Kenny Rogers, a.k.a. the Gambler, make for a good lawyer?
Well, I tell you what, you're right. There is a lot of interplay between these things, because a lot of what I do, people don't realize this, but a large part of my job is just sitting there while my clients lie to me all day, because I don't know why, but when you represent them, they think that they somehow need to tell you this other version. I've been doing this so long, I can tell when people aren't being truthful with me. And so really watching people's body language and seeing how they act when they lie, that plays into my job. Auction drafting, poker, it kind of weaves its way all the way through.
That makes sense.
So yeah, it's a big part of my life. And I think I was just forced to learn it, not because that was something I knew I was going to have to deal with. It's It just sort of happened organically, and here we are. That's something that now I'm good at because that's all I've done for 20 years.
Yeah. So if you weren't the FF auction expert or the lawyer, what would you be doing?
I'd be living in Hawaii with my buddy.
Surfing, huh?
Yeah, I'd be surfing. I say this all the time. I met my wife at my job, so that gave me my family, my wife, my kids. I wouldn't take that back for anything in the world. But if you're talking about hypothetical, yeah, absolutely. I'd be probably living in Tahiti, Hawaii, something like that, just surfing and trying to work a minimum wage job to eat every day.
Would have been a beach
I
bum.
forgot to mention. I forgot to mention that Twitter basically intertwines with that too. You just mentioned how you're used to people lying to you all day. I mean, that's basically Twitter in a nutshell as well. Now, next question here on our docket is: when you're looking at fantasy football, what has fantasy football taught you about yourself?
That's a great one. I think the first thing that pops to mind is it's taught me that I'm a pretty cautious person by nature. That I don't really love volatility. I don't like a lot of risk taking. And I know that that's antithetical to some of the ideas in fantasy football. So I have to really push myself. But I think that that's great because it's made me aware of my limitations. And it's a problem with my poker game too. It's definitely a hole in my game that I'm a little bit too cautious. I'm a little bit too willing to sort of accept that, hey, this person has me beat in this hand. I'm going to fold and fight another day. That's kind of been my way I play fantasy, the way I play poker. And I think that's just a large part of my personality. I think that probably comes from my mom. She was a bit of a helicopter parent. And I think that's been drummed into me, into my personality. So it definitely leaks into everything I do.
See, we can learn a thing or two. You can teach me to be a little bit more cautious, and I can teach you not to know as much. I mean, I was always taught you can never beat an idiot in an argument, right? They will bring you down to their level and then beat you with experience. And that's my whole goal when I go into about just about every single thing in life.
Well, I'll tell you what, I have a little bit of an obsessive part of my personality too, that I can't stand losing. And so I have this like doggedness when I'm in the middle of a tournament or in the middle of an auction draft. Like nobody is going to work harder than me in this moment and beat me because I was sleeping on something or because I didn't prepare or because like that stuff drives me wild. I'm going to lose plenty of times for other reasons, but I don't want that reason to be because I didn't try hard enough or I didn't work hard enough or I didn't prepare.
Right.
It's obsessive, unfortunately.
The Mamba mentality.
Yeah, not the worst quality in the world. We've talked a lot of people actually, talking about the Fantasy Football Expo, the King's Classic, and relationships we know are very important within this industry of fantasy football. Who are one or two people within the industry that you really respect that have helped you along the way?
Well, I don't want to be cliche, but there's a lot of them, and I don't want to leave anybody out. Joe Bryant was big in bringing me on board, but I think that one of the conversations that I'll never forget was a conversation I had with Sigmund Bloom right after I got hired. And he made the analogy that he said, you're coming into the office and you're flipping on the lights in the auction division and you can do whatever you want with it. And he said, there really isn't anybody out there doing auction stuff that you can really point to and say, this is the guy that you go to for auction stuff. And he said, that can be you. And I thought to myself, man, you're ridiculous. Like you're just talking to a new employee. You're trying to make me excited. You're trying to get me pumped up to do some work. But he was right. And 100% was correct that there's a little niche there that need to be exploited. I'm trying to do that. I don't know if I've made it yet, but I'll never forget that conversation with Sigmund. And then I'll say this, that Mike Tagliere was, and again, I don't like name dropping like he's, but he has had such an impact on people that I realize what kind of person it takes to be that, because I get messages all the time. Can you help me with this? Or can you help me with that? I try to respond to all of them. I can't get to all of them. I've never heard a Mike Tagliere story that like, hey, I wrote him and then he didn't write me back, or he was this or that. He was just a prince of a man. I want people to think that way about me. It's really, really hard right now to get to every DM and every response and every tweet. And man, I practically kill myself trying to do that and beat myself up about it. But I learned that from people who genuinely understood that what we're trying to do is help people. We're not here for our own, pride or aggrandizement or whatever, however you want to say it. We're really here to help people. That's why we got into this. Now I know some people are in it for the money or fame or whatever, but most of us, we got here because we want to help people. We love fantasy football. I try to keep myself grounded around that. And I think that comes from guys like Joe Bryant and Sigmund Bloom and Mike Tagliere. So I've just had, I'll even point to Matthew Berry. I mean, he came on my show. He committed to coming on my show before I had a show, which is wild to me. In March and April of 2021, I was thinking and conceptualizing my show. And I'm like, well, is anybody going to care? So I reach out to Matthew Berry and say, do you want to come on my show? He writes me back, yeah, Drew, I'd love to come on your show. And I was blown away. And then I realized, that's because he knows what it's like. He knows what it's like to be there and to be scrambling and trying to make your way up. And I look at those kind of guys and think that's what I want to be. That's how I want to be.
Nice. So let's put a nice little bow on this one. Last question here. One piece of advice for those trying to make it in fantasy football, and then your best piece of advice for parents.
Okay.
Or parenting advice.
Yeah. I got that in spades, I think. I'm still trying to get there, but I'm not quite there yet. So fantasy football, trying to make it, that is tough because there are two things that pop into mind. Number one is find a niche. I fell backwards into mine. I didn't really get that when I was getting into the industry. I just got lucky kind of falling into this niche that I realized now was needed, and especially the legal thing. So find your niche, find something you do a little differently. Guys like Dwayne McFarland taught us that, usage stats and things like that. So find your niche, but also I talked with, who did I talk with? It was Liz Loza from Yahoo. And she said she created a schedule for herself that forced her to put out content in a regular fashion. And I thought that was really interesting because I don't have like a schedule for myself. I try to put something out every day, but man, it is tough with two little kids and another job. And so what she said really made sense. And I think I would say that to everybody out there. If you're not putting out enough content, you're not developing a portfolio, and nobody's going to notice you because you're not out there. So you really got to put yourself out there and commit to putting out a certain amount of content every week in order to get ahead, because those who grind are going to be the ones who get noticed. So that would be what I'd say about fantasy. And then parenting, I always make this analogy about parenting. Nobody told me it was going to be the hardest thing and also the most rewarding thing at the same time. Nobody told me that. I don't know why they didn't tell me about this like dichotomy. Like, it's going to be so hard, but it's going to be worth it. The advice I have is every day that I walk into my lawyer job, I was always told, you're going to have these ethical issues and they're going to come up in your job. And I thought, yeah, right. Somebody's going to come and try to like, hey, can you bribe the judge or what? I don't know. I had these dumb ideas about what ethical issues were. I deal with ethical issues every day in my job. And the reason I'm saying that is I think it's analogous to being a parent. Nobody ever told me that every day you're parenting that child with these little micro lessons that you're teaching them every day. And I always thought, no, it's going to be like, hey, don't drink and drive. Hey, don't put dirt in your ear. Like that stuff. I thought it was going to be obvious, like when those moments came, but those moments happen all day, every day. And they happen at the most inopportune times, driving the kids home from daycare. Dad, what does it mean to die? And you're like, bro, you're 7. Like what?
Like relax.
Every single, exactly. And that's my 7-year-old. He's this deep thinker.
Right.
Where do we go when we die? He's already asking all these questions. I'm like, you're 7, man. Think about Paw Patrol, bro. Like, what are we doing here? But I was not prepared for that. So I think the biggest piece of advice is you're going to have to deal with that every day and just be prepared. And the best thing you can do is just be honest with your children about how you feel about it. Like, hey, I don't necessarily know that answer perfectly, but here's what I know about it. And kids appreciate that. And they understand that you're being honest, and they latch on to that more than you think.
So talk to him like a person, right? That's like that's one of my favorite things I do with my daughter. Even when she was little, I talked to her like she was a person. I never did the Google Gaga stuff. Like, hey, this is what it is. And now she's like a well-adjusted young adult.
Yep. I hope I get there, man. It's tough. It is tough.
I'll share some tips with you off the air here because if it's happened, I've seen it in my experience here so far. So I got plenty of good, bad, and ugly stories to kind of talk about there. But what I want to say here right off the get-go is, first off, if you haven't gone to fantasypoints.com, you want to get that subscription right now, head there right now. Use promo code Vipers22, get 10% off because it's one of the best bang for the buck websites out there today. And what we got to talk about Drew Davenport here in the football guys, because if you want to catch more of his work, you got to head to thefootballguys.com right now. That's where you'll find that mastering series there on salary caps. You got to head to the expo. You're going to catch all about his breaking panel there on the auctions there. You can catch his podcast there, the Auction Brief podcast. And if you're into poker, hey, first day of the expo, a little bit of an icebreaker going down there. Get to know everyone there. It was a $50 buy-in to get to your table to get playing. There's no more spots left to play, but that doesn't mean you can't come and watch and enjoy and get in on some food, some prizes. $50 gets you in the door to have a good ice breaking with some other fans and analysts around the community there. Just got to talk about that real quick before we go.
Oh, yeah.
Win that JT jersey.
I know. Yeah. So we're giving away some cool prizes. Joe's donated some merchandise and some subscriptions. And then I got, some things like a bourbon basket, wine basket, just things of that nature. And then we have some cool memorabilia, Keenan Allen mini helmet that's signed. And then, of course, the crown jewel, the JT Royal Blue autographed jersey. So $50 gets you in the door for the food and the fun and the mingling, kind of kick things off right. And hey, who knows? If you show up and you want to play poker, there's probably going to be some no-shows. You might have a chance to still sneak into the tournament.
Nice.
That sounds fantastic. I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to a little bit of a competition there. Whether we're in the same division or not, I'm sure I'll try and distract you one way, shape, or the other, especially if we're in the same room, because that's what I like to do. That's how I work, especially if there's bidding on someone in my division that I really don't want to have anything to do with. I may just walk over to one of the other auctions and start yelling at people.
Sounds amazing.
His middle name is distraction, so
it's true. It's true. I mean, basically I said I live in organized chaos all the time. I kind of thrive in it. If things are too calm, that is when I'm worried the most, especially in this house. If there's no racket going on, there's something serious going on. Tara knows exactly what I'm talking about, because if her kids are too quiet, one of them's probably in a lot of trouble. That's all being said.
Yeah.
You're never going to be in trouble when you're here on the Behind the Grind, on the Vipercast. For Major, for Tara, for Drew, this has been Behind the Grind once again, and we will see you next week. Take care.